bring Matt in. I've always been a big believer of joining your trade associations. In my previous life, I was a member of the National Wooden Pallet and Container Association. We all got our associations. Now I'm very active with the New York State Commercial Association of Realtors. When I got into real estate 16 years ago, make sure that not only do I participate in some of these, but you look at the other peripheral groups that can help you. And when you also join these groups, like Invest Buffalo Niagara, that I got the hand us to pony up some money for, it's okay, yes, to join them, but also participate in. So I sit on a couple of committees, make sure I'm active with these, making a difference, hopefully. And you always learn something, make some connections, build some relationships. So always wanted to make sure I did that. The other thing, I was able to do a presentation to Hannah Commercial to the leadership group between Pittsburgh and Cleveland, some of our younger ones. And the topic of my conversation was, what's in your toolbox? Basically, what else do you bring to the table? We all have our skills, we all have our companies, but what's that little extra that you bring to the table? In my case, one of the things I brought to the table was Invest Buffalo Niagara. Particularly in my business with commercial real estate, you're having people from out of the area, we're getting a lot of activity from Canada, and I found when I have someone I'm courting out of Canada trying to help them find a place, they have a lot of other issues, legally, accounting, HR, and this is where we bring in Invest Buffalo Niagara to really help them. And they just lay this platter out and say, here we have everything you need. We can direct you so you can do your transition into the United States or from out of the area into the Buffalo area, and really support what's going on here, job-wise, growth-wise, and keeping Buffalo a vibrant place. So with that, introduce Matthew Hubacher.
Thanks, Bill, for your partnership and your investment in Invest Buffalo Niagara and the opportunity to present to this group today. Bill and I are often confused for one another. Just kidding, obviously. But let me just give you some quick background about me before I start to introduce Invest Buffalo Niagara. So I'm Matthew Hubacher. I'm the Senior Vice President at Invest Buffalo Niagara. I head up our business development and research teams. I grew up in North Buffalo, went to Niagara University for undergrad, University of Maryland College Park for grad school. I did what I call a tour of duty on Capitol Hill as a legislative aide for 5.5 years immediately after college. Moved back to Western New York in 2007 for a job as a research analyst with then Buffalo Niagara Enterprise. We've since rebranded as Invest Buffalo Niagara. So I've been doing economic development for 17.5 years, kind of generally, all of which in Western New York at Invest Buffalo Niagara. What's Invest Buffalo Niagara? Well, we are a private, nonprofit, non-government, regional economic development organization here in Western New York. We are tasked with business attraction and expansion. That's our founding mission. That's our guiding North Star. We look both outside of our region's borders to attract job creators and capital investors through business expansions. And we'll talk later about how we go about kind of targeting those companies and identifying those companies. But we're looking outside of our borders for companies who have expansion projects and pitching our product being the regional economy of Western New York, as the place to do that business expansion or relocation project. We've been doing that since our founding in 1999, 2000. One of the main initiatives that we've since added to our organizational offerings is our Be in Buffalo Talent Attraction Initiative. So just like we are looking to recruit businesses to come to the area, we figured because workforce is either the first driver of site location decision or it's the second driver of site location decision-making processes, we also have a Be in Buffalo initiative that I'll talk a little about later that's looking to attract talent and retain talent in our region. And we utilize the strategies that are symbiotic between attracting businesses to the region, the same strategies to attract talent to the region. So when I say Western New York, when I say Buffalo Niagara, I'm talking about an 8-county service territory. What I would tell someone who is not from the area, we basically cover Lake Ontario to the Pennsylvania border, north to south, Lake Erie to Rochester, Monroe County, west to east. We have partner networks, and we work with economic development and industrial development agency staff in all of our 8 counties and several municipal IDAs in, for example, the town of Lockport, the town of Hamburg, the town of Amherst, the town of Clarence. And we have worked with these partners. We represent the business attraction efforts for all of these 8 counties of Western New York. We are currently undergoing what we call our Summer Partner Roadshow, in which we are meeting with all of our partners in market to update them on our opportunity project pipeline and our target industry sectors, our marketing efforts. We're sharing information with our partners to hear what they're working on, how we can amplify the work that they're doing. And then we often go to 1 or 2 or 3 priority properties. Yep.
ECIDA.
Yep.
What's the relationship between Invest in your group and ECIDA?
Yeah, ECIDA, so Erie County Industrial Development Agency. They're a partner organization. So I'll get into this, Jerry, in a little bit, but so we're the project managers, right? So we would identify a company who's looking to expand in the region. We may or may not help them identify commercial real estate. So we're a private nonprofit economic development organization. And if you hear me say EDO, that's Economic Development Organization. We don't own any property, right? We have no buildings to sell you. I have no land to sell you. I don't have an office space for you to lease. We help facilitate the identification of commercial real estate. So the way that we would work with Erie County Industrial Development Agency, we don't have any incentives to offer anybody. So we're not giving anyone tax credits. I don't have any loans to offer anybody. I'm not abating anyone's taxes. But as we work with our companies, as we hear what their project entails, as we hear what's driving the site location decision-making process, we bring all of these partners in. One of those partners may be the Erie County Industrial Development Agency, who would help that company through tax abatements, and those tax abatements take 3 forms: property tax abatements, sales tax abatements, and mortgage recording tax abatements. So they're absolutely a key project partner in many of the deals that we do in their service territory. So as I mentioned, we're on this County Partner Roadshow. We've already met with our partners in Erie and Chautauqua County. We'll be in Genesee County on Monday, and then Wyoming County the following Wednesday. So it's just one of those efforts that we do to make sure that our partners know what we're working on, we know what they're working on, so that when we get an expression of interest, when we're working with a prospect, it's, we're not meeting for the first time, obviously. And that goes for our economic development colleagues, our commercial real estate colleagues, our incentive providing colleagues at all levels of government. It's very, very important that we know each other, that we work together for many years. It does not give a company a positive vibe if they're meeting with a bunch of regional economic developers who are trying to land their project, and it's very obvious that they don't know each other, right? So we do a very, very targeted effort to make sure we're staying in front of our partners. We're in all 8 counties of Western New York, and that when we get expressions of interest, we are very quickly able to assemble whatever team is necessary to help guide that prospect team through the process of navigating the economic development ecosystem in Western New York. And at the end of the day, the reason for our existence, the reason I'm at Invest Buffalo Niagara and the reason that Invest Buffalo Niagara exists is to make it as easy as possible for companies to make the decision to locate in Western New York, create jobs, and invest capital. That's our North Star. So we talked about, thank you, Jerry's looking at my notes. So we talked about what are our service offerings. So what do we do for the prospects that we're working with? It's all dependent on who the prospect is, what's driving the site location decision-making process. It's dependent on maybe who they've already been engaged with. It might depend on who's bringing us the lead. So for example, if Bill many times has brought me and my team in to help with Canadian business attraction, well, if Bill brings in that prospect, Bill and Hannah Commercial are working on the commercial real estate. We're not going to work on the commercial real estate for that deal. Similarly, if an immigration attorney brings a Canadian prospect to us, well, that attorney is going to be working on the incorporation and immigration. We're going to handle all the rest of the offerings. But for now, let's just say we generated the lead and we're working with the project from that first introductory scoping call. These are our main services. I should have had another bullet here that says duties as assigned, but these are the major ways that we can assist companies looking to expand or relocate in Western New York. So the first is site selection. So again, we are a private nonprofit economic development organization. I don't own any buildings, I don't own any land. But what I do have is 17 years of experience and a very strong relationship with the Western New York chapter of NYSCAR, with many commercial real estate brokerage firms and developers who are investors in West Buffalo Niagara. I've helped, site dozens of companies over the last 17 years and worked with dozens and dozens and dozens of brokers and developers. So I have this list of a partner network that I'm able to leverage to identify commercial real estate for our prospects using what we call a site broadcast protocol. So we have a marketing list of about 300 of these brokers, developers, economic developers, investors, building owners, someone who knows someone who owns a building, a list of 300 prospects. 300 contacts. When we're working with our prospects, we get a sense from them of the specs that's going to make their project work in Western New York. So that's going to be something like, I'm making this up, I need 50 to 60,000 square feet of manufacturing space at 24-foot clear with 2 dock doors within the NYPA, the New York Power Authority hydro zone, within 45 minutes of the Canadian border. So we take all of these inputs, we put them in a table, and we blast them out through our site broadcast protocol to these 300 or more, we'll just say commercial real estate contacts. If someone is representing a building or owns a building that fits that criteria, they email us back. I collect all of those submissions. I organize them in a nice little table and send them to our prospect. The end goal of which is one or more of those properties are of interest, and then we help facilitate a site visit on that company's behalf. So basically, this is an easy and quick way for our prospects to get a general idea of what commercial real estate that fits their project is on the market, at what cost, at what quality, in what geography. And then, as I said, hopefully one or more of those properties are of interest, and then we, the project manager at Invest Buffalo Niagara, helps facilitate a visit with a commercial broker. We also coordinate incentives. So I mentioned with the Erie County Industrial Development Agency or Empire State Development, which is New York State's economic development arm, or the New York Power Authority, or many other incentive providers across Western New York. We don't provide any incentives. We help coordinate the incentives on the company's behalf. What does that mean? We're professional economic developers. We know what incentives are available. As we're working with the prospect, as we're hearing, what industry they're in, how many jobs are associated with this project, what's the capital investment associated with this project, the geography where the project might locate, whether there's any workforce hiring assistance or training programs that might be brought to bear, or energy efficiency projects, or whether there's utility infrastructure upgrades that are required, which could get some capital grants through National Grid, NYSEG, National Fuel. We really just listen, and we open up our ears, and we hear what this company is looking to do, and then we introduce the incentive providers who can help come in with financial assistance to make the deal more viable in Western New York. Oftentimes, this is a competitive process, so many times we're working with a company that's looking at 1 other region, 2 other regions, 5 other regions, 10 other regions, 360 other regions. So we make sure that we are bringing all of the support mechanisms to bear to make sure that we're, again, making it as easy as possible for that company to create jobs and invest in Western New York. The same thing with the incentives goes to professional service providers. This is especially critical with Canadian companies. We put our Canadian prospects through a very rigorous, what we call cross-border due diligence process, where the purpose of that is to make sure that they are set up for success from day one. Now, what does that mean? That means incorporating properly in the United States. That means getting your immigration work visa taken care of very early on. Potentially introducing them to a banker who is familiar with working with Canadian prospects to set up, payroll and commercial banking services here. It could be HR compliance, right? That's kind of a corny joke that I make. If you're a Canadian company doing business in the US, is Thanksgiving in October or November, and what does it mean to me, right? Even though we're neighbors, even though we're allies, even though we've been doing business together for many years, even though Invest Buffalo Niagara has helped attract 120 or more Canadian companies to the region, it's still a different country, and there's still different laws that the Canadian prospects have to follow. So we do the same type of introduction to professional service providers as we do to the incentives coordinators. We basically listen to our companies, figure out how they need help, and introduce those professional service providers as needed. Real quick on these other ones, workforce data and availability. That could be everything from workforce recruitment, that could be wage information, that could be connectivity with local universities and colleges for recruiting purposes or job fairs. That could be connectivity with workforce trainer providers like Northland Workforce Training Center or other Department of Labor entities to not only identify companies for recruitment, but also participate in on-the-job training or specialized training programs, regional data and local comparisons. So I mentioned oftentimes this is a competitive situation. So a company might be looking at Buffalo, Pittsburgh, Cleveland, and Columbus. So we provide our research team provides a lot of qualitative and quantitative data that helps inform that business decision and hopefully helps inform that company that Buffalo Niagara is the place to do this expansion project. And then I already mentioned the international due diligence, which is our cross-border due diligence with our Canadian prospects. And then just real quickly on the right is a piece of collateral that we use with a lot of our Canadian prospects. It's our cross-border kind of US checklist that helps provide at the very, very early stages of the process, like how can we help? Well, we can help through all of these categories and many, many more. Yeah. What do you mean track?
You like how similar you have groups in the 8 counties.
Oh, like the lead generation. Yeah, okay. So I would say twofold or maybe threefold. So we have a very, very, very robust website that has like many, many, many pages of information and guides and worksheets specifically for Canadian businesses. We also do a very large spend and a high priority on digital marketing to Canada. That's both through like paid digital marketing through like LinkedIn and other kind of advertising marketing channels. We also have a newsletter called Access US, which is a Canadian like free e-newsletter that comes from me, wink, wink, from me, that goes to I think like over 3,000 Canadian contacts that we've just accumulated throughout the years. We also have a very robust partner network in Canada, right? So we've been working these deals for, we'll call it 25 years. We've helped over 120 Canadian companies establish a US presence here. So we've got a Canadian network of brokers, developers, lawyers, bankers. I was just up in Vaughan last Friday doing a presentation for a group of clients from the Royal Bank of Canada and BDO. So it's brokers, developers, lawyers, accountants, Business Development Canada and Export Development Canada, which are two government entities that help Canadians finance projects in the US. Lots of chambers of commerce and other like industry associations, and like they are just and our business owners of companies that we've helped expand here. Like it's this huge referral network that we have, where if someone hears something that someone's considering expanding into the U.S., hey, you should call Invest Buffalo Niagara. Then last but not least, in the last, we'll call it 6 months and for the foreseeable future, now that I've taken over the business development department, we have like a dedicated strategy of having a physical presence in Canada. So someone on our team is in Canada at least once a month. It's usually twice or 3 or 4 times a month. Like I said, I was just up in Vaughan last Friday. So it's not my opinion as now heading up our BD operation. It's not enough just to be there virtually. I mean, literally they're, right there. Like we need to be there, have a physical presence there to meet those prospects where they are. And we can say, oh, we can meet you, virtually. We can meet you in our offices over at the Brisbane, or we'll come out to, I've been to Mississauga, Scarborough, Vaughan, where else? St. Catharines. Where else have I been? Trying to think. Hamilton. Like we're willing and able to come and meet you right in your office to just again make it as easy as possible and have that personal connection.
So I want to address the elephant in the room. How are things with the Canadians these days?
Yep.
Just curious because
Yeah, sure. So, well, you're talking about tariffs, right? I think we're talking about tariffs. We don't have. So, when we're talking about Liberation Day, we're talking about elbows out Canada. So, we'll call it from December 20th, which is when we started tracking this. Now, we started tracking it that day because we happened to get an expression of interest on the 20th. But December 20th was also a month before the election. So from December 20th through, we'll call it May 31st, we are seeing probably 2.5 to 3 times more interest from Canadian companies than we would have in a normal kind of extended Q1. I would say 3/4 of those companies are telling us that U.S. expansion was in our 2, 3, 5, 10-year plan, and now it's in our 6-month to 1-year plan. Tariffs, the proposed tariffs, the rescinded tariffs, the tariffs that are put in place, the ever-changing nature of that is a driver of that kind of pushed forward interest. I'd say the other quarter of our expressions of interest were just people who are trying to mitigate the tariffs, and they're like, oh, we need to meet with you so you can tell us what's going on with the tariff regime in the U.S. I would tell them, dear sir, madam, if I knew what was going on with the tariff regime in the U.S., I'd be doing something else with my life. But that's on the company side. On the individual side, like we're neighbors with Visit Buffalo Niagara, so I talk with my colleagues in the tourism side, quite often. We are seeing individually that individuals are canceling, an overnight trip, or they're not going to the Galleria Mall, or they're not, coming down for an overnight stay, or they might be canceling, a meeting that they otherwise would have had. We've received some unsolicited nastygrams through our info at, Buffalo Niagara account from individuals who are saying, like, I used to come here 4 times a month, and now I'm not coming. Like, I totally understand that. But that's seemingly on the individual's kind of side. On the business side, they know that the U.S. market is, 10x that of Canada. They know that if they want to have, made in the USA label, if they want to increase their U.S. sales, if they want to be, handling tariff mitigations, if they want to mitigate, risk and delays at the border, all these things that would necessitate a U.S. expansion regularly are still in play. And then last on this point, but I can freestyle as much as you want me to, Invest Buffalo Niagara, we are taking the stance of tariffs or no tariffs, Biden or Trump, Trudeau or Carney. Like, there's a lot of external stuff out there that's constantly changing. Like, we're gonna stay true to our mission. Like, we're here to help any company, but in this instance, we're here to help Canadian companies expand to the U.S. We've done it 120 times. We're going to do it 120 more times. So, like, regardless of like the noise or like the day-to-day 24-hour news cycle, like, we're here to help companies who are looking to expand in Buffalo Niagara, and we're going to keep doing that. Yes and no. We have a more, I would say, consistent communication with like our colleagues in the North Country, like Northern New York. They're seeing a little bit of uptick, but they're also like, we're just we're right outside Toronto, so like that's where 80% of the companies are. But I would say we're seeing like probably like 2 to 3x the amount of interest.
If it's a competitive region the customer's looking for, what regions do we lose to, and what's the main reason we lose?
So it depends on the industry, or even sometimes like the subsector. But the broadest example, really across manufacturing, office, food and beverage, data centers, logistics, life sciences, across all of our target industries, like the biggest competitor, and quite frankly, the one we used to beat and now are losing to, is Columbus, Ohio. Why? I'm going to tell you why in a couple slides here. Oh, so these are our target industries. So we proactively target companies within these target industries, and you see our target subsectors. So those target subsectors, we do a lot of company identification through proprietary and public databases. We're going out with, proactively targeting those companies with messaging of opportunities for expansion in Western New York by leveraging our, strengths and assets and strategic advantages that help companies in those industries be successful. 80% of our project pipeline can be considered manufacturing or logistics warehouse. Just real quick on our impact. So since 1999, we've helped 452 businesses create nearly 49,000 jobs, representing $7.84 billion in capital investment. Some cool projects that we have been working on recently, and just happened to be, I was the project manager on both of these. So Great Lakes Cheese, they were located in Cuba, New York. They were looking to find a new site for a new facility, which we helped them identify in Franklinville and Cattaraugus County. So they are now operational. When we closed the deal, it was a $515 million project because of cost overruns and supply chain disruptions, et cetera, et cetera. It ended up being a $700 million project, representing 427 jobs. 200 of those new jobs, 227 were retained from the previous operation in Allegheny County. That's a very recent photo. That photo's a couple weeks old. I also worked on the Amazon Robotics Fulfillment Center in Niagara County. That's a very old picture. This is from last fall at the groundbreaking event. But I was working with my counterparts at Amazon for the better part of like 6 or 7 years, and I looked at several sites. Some of you may have known some of those sites that was, not very well kept secret, but they're now under construction up at the Niagara Falls Airport shovel-ready site, which is proximate to the Niagara Falls Air Force Reserve Base and the Niagara Falls Airport, representing $550 million of CapEx and 1,000 jobs. We were also involved in the Edwards project at Stamp in Genesee County. We're involved in the Electrovaya battery project in Jamestown. We help, the largest companies in the world, expand here. We also work with 1 or 2 person, Canadian small warehouse opportunities, and quite honestly, everything in between.
How many square feet is that Great Lakes Cheese? I mean, I've driven by it. It is outrageously large.
I don't know that because I'll get back to you because they've changed it like 4 times. That was like part of the cost overruns. The Amazon warehouse is 3.2 million, will be 3.2 million square feet. I've been talking a lot. I'm just going to roll through some of our kind of like support initiatives. So we have an economic gardening program, which is for local companies, local second stage companies. We define second stage as between 1 and 50 million in revenue, 10 and 99 employees. These are companies who want to expand but just need a little help with something. Like that could be market analysis, that could be product improvement, this could be export assistance, this could be SEO, search engine optimization, and other marketing tactics. It could be kind of B2B introductions. But we help companies, local companies, go through this program through the National Center for Economic Gardening. We've had a couple dozen companies go through the program already. And we're always looking for more interest for this program. It is at no cost to the participating company. The cost is borne by, we'll call it fundraising and grant opportunities that Invest Buffalo Niagara has identified and obtained to help offset the cost of those.
So just for this marketing and SEO, do you have in-house or do you have vendors?
We're just the connector. It's all the National Center for Economic Gardening has like a nationwide group of professionals that help assist the companies with like specific areas of need. We're the connector. We're the company identifier and the funder and applier conduit. One of the reasons why we're losing to Columbus is the lack of available product. Product being both manufacturing and warehouse buildings that are of any quality that are available on the market for lease or purchase. Also the lack of development-ready sites on the market. I don't use the word shovel-ready. Shovel-ready is a nonsensical marketing term, but when I talk about development-ready, I mean a company can purchase land and have a shovel in the ground, we'll call it within like 90 to 120 days.
Why isn't there more space in this area like that?
I will tell you. So back in like 2017, 18, 19, we were getting a lot of companies to what we call the project stage. At the project stage, Buffalo Niagara, Western New York is shortlisted for that deal. So we're getting companies to that stage, And time after time after time after time, it was, we can't find suitable real estate for them. Can't find suitable real estate, can't find suitable real estate, they would go somewhere else. It came to a head with a project which we called Project Flux Capacitor. It was called Project Flux Capacitor because we thought that this company needed so much energy that they could probably go to the future with the energy. But anyway, this is a company that we had worked with like 8 years prior. 8 years prior, they ended up going to Mississauga to take it. It was a solar PV manufacturer. They ended up going to Ontario to take advantage of the Ontario feed-in tariff. They came back to us in 2017 or 18 and basically said, like, we want to be here. We're back. We told you we were coming back. Find us a building, and we're here. And we looked, and we looked, and we looked, and we looked, and we looked. We couldn't find them a building. We didn't land that investment and job creation. That company went to the state of Washington. Why is it so difficult? Oh, sorry. So we quickly escalated this through our C-level team, and our board of directors decided we need to commission a study to figure out what the problem is, and figure out what solutions are, so that all parties, economic development, commercial real estate development professionals, elected officials, policymakers, we can all get on the same page of what's the problem and how can we solve it. Well, the problem was industrial deliveries. Like, supply wasn't coming anywhere close to meeting the demand, right? So we did, I think this is 2019 numbers. So in 2019, we looked at 3 different peer competitive regions. In 2019, in Western New York, we put a little over 100,000 square foot of manufacturing and warehouse space, new space on the market. 100,000 square feet. Pittsburgh put 1.2 million square feet. So that's what, 12x? Columbus, Ohio, who we go against on many of these deals across different industries, 5.9 million square feet. Now, were all of these like just speculative, like, immediately available? No, obviously some of this was for end users, but as that supply goes on and the churn of business happens, they just have an incredible amount of more options to put in front of companies. I mean, Spartanburg, Greenville, South Carolina, 7.1 million square feet. I mean, that's a little bit different because that's the Southeast and that's like kind of a red hot kind of market, but we compete with Columbus on dozens of deals. We put 104,000 square feet on, they put 5.3 million. That's just, I mean, I don't want to throw the development community under the bus, but the supply is not matching the demand.
Is it infrastructure though, or is it just that the developers aren't building?
I don't want to, I mean, I'm not trying to be evasive, but I am trying to be evasive. And I can't tell you why. I mean, I'm an economic developer. I wish we had 5.3 million square feet go on the market in 1 year. That would be awesome. But that's not.
My experience, I mean, our infrastructure is a little challenged. I mean, whether it's the electric grid or the sewer systems, things like that.
So can you invite Columbus developers here?
So what's the solution? So the solution is we now have a Western New York industrial real estate development strategy that, if you want to talk kind of after, I'll give you the gory details. But basically, it has 58 recommendations for process improvement, best practices on how we can start to grease the skids for more industrial development. Immediately after we began this process in November of 2019, you can kind of guess what happened, but we moved through this process throughout the pandemic. This report was delivered in January of 2021. And we have had some good successes so far. Of these 58 recommendations, we fully implemented, I think it's 38. Is it 38, Bill? We call it 38 of the 58 recommendations. We have seen some speculative development. So there's a couple buildings that Uniland put up at at Renaissance Commerce Park in Lackawanna. There's a couple spec buildings at Dingens. All told, those buildings are probably 400,000 square feet. There's 65,000 of that 400,000 square feet left, and we, Invest Buffalo Niagara, are very confident we are going to be putting a new company in that 65,000 square feet in the next month or so. And after that, there will be no new industrial product on the market. So after that company goes into two steelworkers, a company comes to us and says, hey, we want to see your brand new, never been occupied warehouse space, and we say, we don't have any. Rising interest rates is a concern. Rising interest rates and how that pencils out on a pro forma is a concern. But yes, I'm sorry who asked the question. Like, so yes, we have, we'll call it maybe exhausted our requests to local developers and have looked at developers from New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Ohio to see if there's any, we'll call it larger risk tolerance kind of out there in the market. So yeah, so with this, I'll just kind of I'll leave you on this slide with my kind of whatever, my one smart thing that I have that you can take home with you is economic development is very simple. No product, no project. Our product is commercial real estate. Available buildings that are suitable for modern manufacturers and logistics operations and development-ready sites. If we don't have the product, we're not going to get the project. That company is going to go to the next region, state, country, continent, etc. And they're not going to wait for someone to build them a building. They're not going to wait 2 years to go through this process. They need something now. No product, no project. If you don't have the product, you don't get the project. We have our Be in Buffalo Talent Attraction Initiative. I'll just go through this real quick. We partner with Bill's Backers bars across the country and send them swag to get them to sign up for our newsletter, and then that newsletter delivers just like kind of like positive stories and like job openings that are available, and just like other cool regional stories as a connector for folks who are looking to either move to the region or move back from the region. On the Tech Hub, so in 2023, we were awarded a Phase 1 application through the Tech Hub initiative through the Biden administration. The Phase 1 award allowed us to move on to Phase 2, which we kind of navigated through the second half of 2023 into the first half of 2024. There were 31 designated areas that were Tech Hub regions, 4 of which were semiconductor industry applications. We were the winner. We were the one region that was awarded for the semiconductor subsector. And this is a regional effort between our colleagues in Buffalo, Rochester, and Syracuse. So we're working with kind of all entities in that upstate, I-90 corridor. On the Invest Buffalo Niagara side, we're working with our colleagues at Greater Rochester Enterprise and Center State CEO in Syracuse, who are effectively the Invest Buffalo Niagaras of those regions, to organize ourselves and get going on what we're calling SCAN, which is a Supply Chain Activation Network. That's what Invest Buffalo Niagara is tasked with working on. So that is getting into our local companies who are making products that could be used in the semiconductor supply chain, but they're not currently participating in that supply chain. Give them information, give them connections, connect them with Micron in Clay and Syracuse and Intel in Columbus, kind of get information on what products those companies are requiring in their supply chains and how can our local companies either use their product or slightly modify their product or ramp up production to fit those supply chain needs. There's also what other entities are doing, kind of like in partnership with our SCAN effort. There's workforce development dollars, commercialization, and all of this is a very, like I said, collaborative effort amongst the three regions. Very soon, we'll be putting out a job posting for a Tech Hub navigator, which will be a position within Invest Buffalo Niagara who will be charged with leading this SCAN effort and going out there and meeting with companies locally, like every day, all day.
Are those funding and grants secure, or is there a chance that they would be cut?
Again, I'll go back to if I could give you the 100% answer, I wouldn't be doing this. But so far we've been drawing down our funds without any delays or cuts. And then lastly, real quick, kind of leveraging our Western New York Industrial Real Development Strategy Committee and the experience and leadership of the committee. We, Invest Buffalo Niagara, as part of County Executive Polenkar's Sumitomo Task Force, are leading a redevelopment study for that Sumitomo site. We are looking at this as a Plan B, right? So Plan A is Sumitomo sells the facility and the land to an end user who's going to use that to its highest and best use to create jobs and invest capital. But if that doesn't happen, we don't want this to become another Bethlehem Steel. We don't want this to be another, eyesore for 20, 30, 40 years. We also don't want it to become like the NRG facility in Tonawanda, where the town is now proceeding with eminent domain because the company hasn't done anything with it. So Plan B is a redevelopment study in which we have engaged with a site selection firm out of Greenville, South Carolina called Strategic Development Group, and they have they have teamed up with a couple local entities, Terracon and Nussbaumer and Clark. And this study is going to really do two things. The first side of it is going to be what's the current status of the facility, what are the specs of the facility, what are the environmentals of the facility. If we were working with a company, like we need to have information to give them, like here, this is what this building entails. This is the current specs and current status of the building. That's kind of the first part of this effort. The second part of this effort is 3 or 4 redevelopment scenarios, based on what SDG is seeing in the market with their companies that they're working with, based on the current status of the economy and the market in Tonawanda, New York in 2025. What are some realistic redevelopment scenarios that we could potentially entertain if we can't find an end user to buy the building? So that's like 1.1 million. So I keep making this stupid joke. This obviously isn't a thing, but like we don't want to just have people putting everything out there like, oh, we could put the Bills Stadium there, or this could be a high-rise office park. Like that's not happening, right? We don't want to just throw a bunch of stuff. I call it like pin the tail on the donkey. We don't want to just throw a bunch of stuff against the wall and see what sticks. We want this to be rooted in data and the current status of the facility and market drivers and like realistic redevelopment scenarios. So this is kind of like the timing of this. We are now in step 2. I am working with my counterparts at SDG, Terracon, and Nussbaumer and Clark to get information from local stakeholders to inform kind of like a mini request for information. Next week, the team will be in market. We will be doing pretty much like a half-day, 3/4-day tour of the facility and meeting with a handful of Sumitomo representatives to gather more information. We'll also be talking with local stakeholders from elected officials, economic developers, utilities, workforce, etc. And then we'll continue this in order to have like the final presentation. We'll call it the last week of July or the first week of August. I, Matt Hubacher, SVP at Buffalo-Niagara, I'm really pushing this on a fast track. Like I didn't want to delay this. I didn't want to get to the year end. I didn't want to get to November 7th, 2025, the year anniversary of the announcement of the closure, and be like, oh, hey, what are you guys working on? Like, oh, nothing. We're in process of doing something or other. I wanted to make sure that we had this done kind of in the summer so that if we needed to start working on these redevelopment scenarios, we could do so, sooner versus later. And let the public know that, like I said, unlike Bethlehem Steel or some other, high-profile business closures, like we're not just going to put our head in the stand and pretend this didn't happen. Like we're proactively working on, having Sumitomo sell this building to an end user or create some redevelopment scenarios that would be, positive for our local economy. I'm sorry, I know I'm way over my time, but I appreciate the opportunity. I'm happy to stay for as long as anyone wants to stay and chat afterwards. And again, thanks, Bill and team for having me today. And I've got a bunch of cards up here if anyone wants a card.